I became a prosecutor? That is an interesting question. My story is kind of funny. I actually am from Florida, and I was a defense attorney there for a number of years. And I met a police officer from Ohio who was studying, doing a continuing education type of thing in Florida. We ended up dating, and now we're married, and I ended up in Ohio and tried my hand at the prosecution side, thinking, I don't know how well I'm gonna fit in. And to my surprise, I loved it. So being a prosecutor or a defense attorney in the public sector for me has been the most rewarding in my career, helping others in the community, either side. But I have found here in Summit County, as a prosecutor, I have felt like I've been able to help a lot more people than I was able to, when I was a defense attorney. And I just really feel like I've kind of found where I'm supposed to be. There's a lot of good about it. I'll say, obviously trial, there's a huge, thrill of being in trial. There's just nothing like it, and that applies to either side equally. But, just being able to help people, you get these cases, and sometimes, a lot of the time they're so horrific that I think, I and other prosecutors, we struggle as we get through them because, you take them home and it's hard to separate, and you get to know these people and you care about them, and, you know that they've been through the most difficult time in their life, and you can't fix that, you can't make it go away, but you can by doing your job, you can do a little bit to make them feel a little bit safer, have a little more peace, have a little more closure, with the circumstances. And if you can hold on to that passion and empathy, I think it can really make a difference for somebody who has to go through this, to know, I have somebody on my side, I have an advocate, I have a team, and this is going to be really, really hard, but I'm going to get through it. I have young children, and I have found that it is incredibly difficult when I have cases involving children. Things that I never really imagined that people could do to children. And it's really difficult sometimes to separate myself and not, think about my own children. And so that can be emotionally taxing, for sure. But again, I think that it comes down to just the awareness that this is so difficult for me emotionally. I can't even imagine what it's like for, the family and, the victims themselves, the ones that survive. And so while it is incredibly difficult having these cases, I also find them to be the most rewarding when we can see that justice is done and, the person, that caused the trauma is punished. I've had a couple recently that have been very difficult, involving young children that have been either physically or sexually abused. One that lost her life, and that has been extremely, extremely difficult. Again, just not even being able to fathom some of these circumstances and the things that people are capable of doing. And sadly, a part of our job is to see that, and we have to look at all the evidence to ensure that justice is done, and some of that evidence is really difficult to get through. But that at the end of the day, you're going to make a difference for someone, hopefully, and help make the journey a little bit less re-traumatizing for them. as a defense attorney, I remember thinking, various things, prosecutors only care about, getting their conviction, and they don't care about justice. Prosecutors, it's not hard for them. They just have this, template, and they go in and they just read from it, and it's all the same, and, it's just not a hard job, and they don't know what it's like to represent, a person who may lose, their liberty and things like that. And I just simply couldn't have been more wrong. And it's funny now, for me, because I look back at that time and what I thought, and again, first of all, it's, I would say, perhaps even more challenging. One, because yes, you aren't representing an individual whose liberty is potentially at stake. You're representing a lot of people. You're representing the state of Ohio. So you have to concern yourself not just with one human, but with the safety of the community, the safety of the victim and their family, that may be involved with this particular instance. And you think about the defendant, because again, our job, is not how many convictions can I get, it's what is right, and that doesn't translate over so much to the defense side. You're a zealous advocate for your client. Here, we do what's right for all of the citizens of Ohio, and so that can be certainly a challenge in itself, with so many competing interests at times. And even in an instance where perhaps the victim doesn't want things to go a particular way, we still have to weigh and balance everything to ensure that the right result happens, and that's a heavy burden.